Chapter 16 of Jimbo. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Jimbo by Algernon Blackwood. Read by Adrian Pretzelis. Chapter 16. Preparation. Now that he was preparing to leave it, Jimbo began to realise more fully how things in this world of delirium, so the governess sometimes called it, were all terribly out of order and confused. So long as he was wholly in it and of it, everything had seemed all right, but as he approached his normal condition again, the disorder became more and more apparent, and the next few hours brought it home with startling clearness, and increased the desire for the final escape to fever heat. It was not so much a nonsense world, it was too alarming for that, as a world of nightmare, wherein everything was distorted. Events in it were all out of proportion. Effects no longer sprang from adequate causes. Things happened in a dislocated sort of way, and there was no sequence in the order of their happening. Tiny occurrences filled him with disproportionate, inconceivable horror, and great events, on the other hand, passed him scatheless. The spirit of disorder, monstrous, uncouth, terrifying, reigned supreme, and Jimbo's whole desire, though inarticulate, was to escape back into order and harmony again. In contrast to all this dreadful uncertainty, the conduct of the governess stood out alone as the one thing he could count on. She was sure and unfailing. He felt absolute confidence in her plans for his safety, and when he thought of her, his mind was at rest. Come what might, she would always be there in time to help. The adventure over the sea had proved that, but, childlike, he thought chiefly of his own safety, and had ceased to care very much whether she escaped with him or not. It was the older Jimbo that preferred captivity to escape without her, whereas every minute now he was sinking deeper into the normal child state in which the intuitive flashes from the buried soul became more and more rare. Meanwhile there was preparation going on, secret and mysterious. He could feel it. Someone else beside the governess was making plans, and the boy began to dread the moment of escape almost as much as he desired it. The alternative appalled him. To live for ever in the horror of this house, bounded by the narrow yard, watched by fright, listening ever at his elbow, and visited by the horrible frightened children. Even the governess herself began to inspire him with something akin to fear, as her personality grew more and more mysterious. He thought of her as she stood by the window, with the branches of the tree visible through her body, and the thought filled him with a dreadful and haunting distress. But this was only when she was absent. The moment she came into the room and he looked into her kind eyes, the old feeling of security returned, and he felt safe and happy. Once, during the day, she came up to see him, and this time with final instructions. Jimbo listened with rapt attention. "Tonight or tomorrow night we start," she said in a quiet voice. "You must wait till you hear me calling." "But shan't we start together?" he interrupted. "Not exactly," she replied. "I'm doing everything possible to put him off the scent, but it's not easy, for once fright knows you, he's always on the watch. Even if he can't prevent your escape, he'll try to send you home to your body with such a shock that you'll be only half there for the rest of your life." Jimbo did not quite understand what she meant by this, and returned at once to the main point. "Then, the moment you call, I'm to start?" "Yes. I shall be outside somewhere. It depends on the wind and the weather a little, but probably I shall be hovering above the trees. You must dash out of the window and join me the moment you hear me call. Clear the wall without sinking into the yard, and mind he doesn't tear your wings off as you fly by." "What will happen, though, if I don't find you?" he asked. "You might get lost. If he succeeds in getting me out of the way first, you're sure to get lost." "But I've had long flights without getting lost," he objected. "Nothing to this one," she replied. "It will be tremendous. You see, Jimbo, it's not only distance, it's change of condition as well." "I don't mind what it is, so long as we escape together," he said, puzzled by her words. He kept his eyes fixed on her face. It seemed to him she was changing even as he looked at her, a sort of veil lifted from her features. He fancied he could see the shape of the door through her body. "Oh, please, Miss Lake," he began in a frightened voice, taking a step towards her. "What is the matter? You look so different." "Nothing, dear boy, is the matter," she replied faintly. "I feel sad at the thought of our going, that's all. But that's nothing," she added more briskly. "And remember, I've told you exactly what to do, so you can't make any mistake. Now, goodbye for the present." There was a smile on her face that he had never seen there before, and an expression of tenderness and love that even he could not fail to understand. But even as he looked, she seemed to fade away into a delicate thin shadow as she moved slowly towards the trap-door. Jimbo stretched out his arms to touch her, for the moment of dread had passed, and he wanted to kiss her. "No," she cried sharply. "Don't touch me, child, don't touch me." But he was already close beside her, and in another second would have had his arms round her, when his foot stumbled over something, and he fell forward into her with his full weight. Instead of saving himself against her body, however, he fell clean through her. Nothing stopped him. He met nothing more solid than air, and fell full length onto the floor. Before he could recover from his surprise and pick himself up, something touched him on the lips, and he heard a voice that was faint as a whisper, saying, "Goodbye, darling child, and bless you." The next moment he was on his feet again, and the room was empty. The governess had gone through the trap-door, and he was alone. It was all very strange and confusing, and he could not understand what was happening to her. He never for a moment realized that the change was in himself, and that as the tie between himself and his body became closer, the things of this other world he had been living in for so long must fade gradually away into shadows and emptiness. But Jimbo was a brave boy, and there was nothing of the coward in him, though his sensitive temperament made him sometimes hesitate where an ordinary child with less imagination would have acted promptly. The desire to cry he thrust down and repressed, fighting his depression by the thought that within a few hours the voice might sound that should call him to the excitement of the last flight and freedom. The rest of the daylight slipped away very quickly, and the room was full of shadows almost before he knew it. Then came the darkness. Outside the wind rose and fell fitfully, booming in the chimney with hollow music, and sighing round the walls of the house. A few stars peeped between the branches of the elms, but masses of cloud hid most of the sky, and the air felt heavy with coming